back, everyone, to the newest episode of Conner Prairie's one and only podcast, Beyond the Revolution. I'm Easton.
And I'm Ryan.
And today we're exploring forming an American identity.
Our culture shapes this identity, and one of the pillars of any culture is their unique culinary palette. So today we're talking about food, how it brings people together, and, anything else that comes along the way. And we are joined by the best guest for this quest, Kim McCann, our program developer, who right now is running an America's Table food program series this year, along with America 250, asking some of these same questions we'll be exploring today.
Welcome, Kim.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
And Michelle Evans, our domestic trades manager, who oversees our historic foodways and gardens here at Conner Prairie, as well as being heavily involved in the Association for Living History, Farm, and Agricultural Museums that focuses on preserving these historic traditions for generations to come. Thank you for both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
For me, when I'm asked what would make you go to a museum program, because I go to a lot of museums, but I quickly realizing I don't go to a lot of programs offered by museums, but the things that constantly come up are food and music. And I would be hard pressed to find a program that does not include food in some way that you do, Kim, right? So what role can food play in helping people appreciate history and culture?
Well, I think, first of all, to be completely honest, food is a really easy way to get people through the door because who doesn't love to eat, right? But I think that food is always a way to tell a story. I think anytime that you're eating, there's information behind that food. It has been my experience in the past 5 or 6 years that I've been doing food programming that so many people are disconnected nowadays from their food source. And that knowledge or lack of knowledge to me is like sort of alarming. Like people don't think about when people say, we should be concerned about the bees, we should be concerned about agriculture and dying family farms. And they say, well, there's grocery stores full of food. Adults who say this. And so to me, it's so right. And so I think that there's a disconnect. And so I think it's very important, first of all, to draw lines for people if they don't have those lines drawn themselves already. And then once that's established for folks, or when you establish it within a program, then you can dive into some of the other stories. Food history is super interesting. I'm a dork, also, but there are so many great stories, and understanding the origins of things. In the new program series that I'm doing for the 250th America's Table, we're looking at 4 different foods, and we trace back where they come from. We think of them as American foods, or that they're part of our American, plate, and they're not ours. They're not ours at all. When we think of, who America is and what comes from America, everything we have in this country is from someplace else. And so being able to explore those stories, I think, helps people appreciate what they consume, and educating them about where food comes from helps them think about how they consume.
Yes, and I'm very excited to dive deeper into all of those things. But first, Prairie Town, a staple at Conner Prairie. And food is ever present. Why is it so important to have food represented historically at Conner Prairie?
That's part of everyday life, and as Kim said, everybody eats. So that's something that everybody can so easily connect to. It's when you walk into a house in Prairie Town and somebody says it smells like Grandma's kitchen. You're stirring up all those memories that people already have that they didn't remember until they smell that food, and it wakens up something inside of us. And I think that's just part of life that we can all connect to.
Okay, so I have a really overarching question for the episode, but I'd love to hear your immediate thoughts, both of you. How has food played a role in shaping American culture?
Well, I think we've all brought different traditions depending on where our ancestors came from, where our families came from. Whether your family's been in the United States for 300 or 400 years, but you've moved from different parts of the country, and that affects it even, those little moves. But, if we've come from different parts of the world, then definitely we've brought different food traditions, different food tastes, what we expect things to taste like, and what we look for in food, how it should look. But then sometimes we're dealing also with, you get here from another part of the world and you don't have the same
like climate
vegetables,
or
right? Yeah. Right. And so how do you adapt to that? And I think we see so much of that in the United States of, we still call sweet potatoes yams.
Yeah.
And yams are a totally different vegetable.
They're completely different.
But because of so many people that were brought here from Africa who had yams in Africa, we've still got people throughout the United States that still call sweet potatoes yams because sweet potatoes were kind of that substitute for the yam that they couldn't grow. And I think we see traditions like that throughout the country.
Yeah, I mean, even Indiana's unofficial state sandwich, the pork tenderloin, is really sort of an adapted schnitzel, right?
Yeah. Is it really?
Yeah.
I've never had one.
Thin, pounded, breaded, fried meat. Yeah.
You've never had a pork tenderloin?
I have not.
Schnitzel.
I haven't had either of those.
How long have you lived in Indiana?
5 years.
You have to leave now. You've reached the statute of limitations on.
But I just
how
got
long
all
you
my
can live
paperwork
here.
done. No, that's.
Yeah, I'm 100% with everything that Michelle said, and I think there's another part of America that is really unique as a country across the board. Is that number one, the size of this country. Although it can be compared to other countries, it is uniquely blocked and bordered in a way that you can go from one state to another, and there is a distinct cultural shift. There's a distinctive, different feel in the same way that if you were traveling in Europe as you got to another country. And the thing with that is that we are probably the most connected by roadway.
Oh, Indiana?
Yeah. Well, no, the whole country, I think. When you compare another country of our size, how we're connected, we are a car culture.
Yeah.
And I think that car culture helps to spread a food culture. You can go to any big metropolitan city in any state, and there will be a Chinatown or Koreatown, a German town, a Polish town. There'll be a cultural spot there for food. And that travel that has happened within the United States has an impact on culture in these other sort of cultural bubbles. I don't know if this is making sense. It makes sense to me in my head.
No, it 100% does.
But it's just, I mean, it's such an interesting thing to look at. Like Michelle said, people who came here from someplace else adapted the ingredients when they got here, and we see that all the time. Someone who travels to China and says, "Oh, I don't know what this food is."
Right.
Chinese food that I eat is different, but they don't understand they're eating American Chinese food, and it's culturally part of America, which is really great because there's really good Chinese food. I happen to be from Michigan originally, and we have something in Michigan called ABC, which is almond boneless chicken. Now you can get almond chicken at other American Chinese restaurants throughout the country, but in Michigan, it's one of the few places that you can get ABC done the way I grew up with it, and it is like a cultural thing. So food is, I don't know,
It's really interesting you say that because I didn't think about it, but when you were visiting like a Chinatown in Chicago, there might be a theater, there might be something, but like you go there for the food, right?
Yes.
That's what the
Absolutely.
most like physical representation of that area is. Oh, the cuisine. You go there for the cuisine.
Yeah, and you don't go to the places on the main boulevard or street. You go to the places that are adjacent to the grocery stores that are selling the ingredients to the people who live there, because they are from that culture, and you go to the restaurants that they're visiting.
Do you think food is one of the easier ways to kind of ease into another culture or learn about another culture then?
I think definitely, because as somebody who has traveled to different parts of the world, you can't speak the language, but you can eat the food.
Right,
and I think it's the same here. You may not connect to people's culture immediately, but you still got to eat. So I think that's an easy way.
Yeah, 100%. I think that you should always be willing to try something, even if it's something that you're not comfortable with. But if you have the capacity to be present in the moment of trying new foods, and you're thoughtful about it, you can learn so much about why this food is eaten, why this exists, why is America sandwich the peanut butter and jelly and not any place? I mean, like any other country that you go to, they're like, peanut butter and jelly, oh my gosh, or just peanut butter is disgusting, but you look at why that sandwich is born, it's born out of poverty to a certain extent, right? It's filling, it's healthsome to a certain extent. It has some sugar, you're using preserved things. It's filling, it's a unique taste. You're not going to find it someplace else. And I think that's the same with food. You go to someplace else and their thing, even to a certain extent, you go to Mexico, the home of the taco, right? And it's only in the past 10 years that Americans have been eating Mexican tacos, what's considered a Mexican taco.
Gotten past the Taco Bell taco. Yeah.
Right. We call them white people tacos. Like this. It's true, because that's what it is. It's that adaptation of this tastes foreign to me, so I'm going to make it taste like what I'm comfortable with.
The comparison to language is really interesting because, it makes it very clear that food is more accessible. Even when sometimes food can be scary, especially, I know Easton's more of a picky eater.
I'm trying to move past that.
Yeah, no. And the nice thing about food is you can, right? It is. And with language, it's really fun because you can kind of trace language etymologies back. And you can do the same thing with food and see how, terrain and geography has impacted language. But also, I think language has an interesting relationship with food. Specifically, like how do you think language and kind of its use to describe food reflects cultural attitudes? Because here, we try and describe food almost objectively, like this is good food. We're ranking food, and instead of using language to ascribe value or meaning to a food.
That's interesting. I don't think I'd thought about it like that before. I think a lot of times people are, I guess for me, and I don't know if it falls into the cultural section of it, but I think a lot of times people describe the experience of eating as opposed to the food itself.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, it makes me think about some of the cultural differences in literal consumption. Like in some Asian cultures, slurping and lip smacking is a sign of enjoyment of food. And it's like, if you're not doing that, it means that you're not enjoying yourself. And in America, if you're slurping and lip smacking, you're going to be told to, like, oh my gosh, why are you eating like that, right? Yeah. I love watching cultural food videos, and there's a sort of there's a noise that some cultures have when they're consuming food that they're enjoying, right? And there's like, I've heard like 5 or 6 really distinctive. It's not just the same creators who are presenting videos that have these noises in it. It's like, oh, this is a noise that's made, and it's really, I think for me, like that, it it like makes this huge sphere, right, of the experience of food as a culture. And I find that fascinating and exciting.
100%. And language also kind of goes back to your point with the yams, where sometimes even though it's not actually describing what it is, we're more comfortable with a certain, language or experience.
Yeah. I mean, like there's so many, like British people call arugula rocket and they call zucchini courgette, and there's different food names for essentially the same food, but probably if you drill down into it, those vegetables are different on a level that we don't recognize, right?
Or you think of mangoes. There's still a lot of older people, especially in southern Indiana, but around the Midwest, I think in Ohio too, it happens, that call bell peppers mangoes.
Really?
Because they used to stuff them and pickle them like in Asia, in India particularly, they did with mangoes, the fruit mango. Well, when the British colonizers in India came back to England and then to the United States, they didn't have the fruit, so they found other things. They did cantaloupes and then later bell peppers the same way, stuffed them with spices and pickled them, and called them mangoes.
Yeah, there's a, now that you just brought up the mango, which I remember like the first time I saw that in a historical cookbook, I was like, what's happening? And again, this is like my dorkery on full mode.
Oh, please.
Perfect.
Proceed.
Ketchup.
Oh.
Right? Oh, American tomato ketchup, right? I just the other day saw a British person talking about tomato ketchup, and all the comments on the video were like, what other kind of ketchup would it be? Like, oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. Tomato's like the last ketchup. But also, my grandma always called it ketchup, right? Which originally that was the spelling. Heinz is the one who made it ketchup. But the original catsup is actually, and I'm going to butcher this, but is from the Chinese word or compound word, ketchup, which was kind of like Worcestershire sauce. It was a fish-based, vinegary kind of dark sauce that was used to help preserve things on ships. And when sailors experienced it, they were like, actually, this is really good. They went back, tried to duplicate it. That's where Worcestershire sauce comes from. And then mushroom ketchup is developed from that. And then let's make everything ketchup. I mean, there's mustard ketchup and
walnut ketchup, cucumber ketchup,
cabbage ketchup. I mean, there's all kinds of
oyster
ketchup. But it's not like squirty bottle ketchup that you think of necessarily. It can be like a relish. It can be watery like a liquid.
But it's all, why is it all called ketchup then?
Because that's what people are comfortable with.
Right.
Right? That's what's known. I mean, what are you going to be like, we can't figure out what to call this. It's, let's call it wazoo.
Sauce.
Like,
sauce number one, sauce number two.
Right. Yes.
Well, it's like everything's an aioli now, or
Right.
it's because
Which
it
it's
sounds fancy. It's,
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then people have a misconception of what aioli is, and so when you present them with something that isn't aioli and you tell them it's aioli, that's aioli for them. And I'm sure the same thing happens with ketchup, is that's how ketchup becomes ketchup, tomato ketchup.
Man.
Banana ketchup, too, in the Philippines.
Wow. This could be a whole podcast
I
episode
know.
in and of itself.
Seriously, years ago, I did a condiment training, and the research was fascinating.
ketchup and mustard.
Yeah.
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 Because you saying mustard ketchup almost sounds like an oxymoron. Like,
I
what do you mean
accidentally
mustard
said
ketchup?
that. I meant mushroom.
Oh, I apologize.
I was like,
But there are things that are like mustard ketchup. There are like sauces like chow chows and things like that can be mustardy, or even pickles, like
Like a wow wow sauce.
India pickle or a wow wow sauce can be like a mustardy kind of, which are all taken from chutneys too, so. Yeah.
yeah.
Dang.
Food.
We could go so many different directions, but I do want to talk about how food has we have so many traditions in the United States that end up being tied to food. And that is so much a part of our identity. You know, your sports games are tied to food. We recently did a documentary, and one of our former colleagues just listed off a number of them. Funerals, weddings, like birthdays. They're all associated with food. Yeah. And I don't know if I have a question related to that, but I think this actually goes back to your point with we associate and describe food a lot with the experience, more so than the food itself. We attach it to either important parts of these lives, or it's what this event, you eat this food.
Yeah, I think it's about comfort and community. I mean, when you're listing off those events, whether it's a ball game or a funeral or a wedding or a birthday party or a any kind of celebration or anything that brings people together, people are going to be more comfortable and happy if they have something to eat.
Yeah.
Right? If nothing else, it's something to do, right? So if you don't like anybody there, you don't have to talk to anybody. But also, it's an instant connection to the people around you who are having the same thing. You don't know anybody there. You're both eating the dip, like, oh, this dip is really good. Oh, you start a conversation with someone like, oh, I've had this before. Or, oh, I've never had it. Do you know what's in it? And you're talking about food and you've started a conversation. So food has that way of both comforting and building relation.
Right.
And I think there's the comfort of the routine. You know, every Thanksgiving we have these dishes, and every Christmas we have these dishes, and at every birthday, I know people that don't like cake, so they have pie at their birthday. And so it's just that that there's that comfort in knowing what's going to happen.
And I think that you have those traditional things, and I think some families get really upset if something new is brought in, for a tradition, especially like Thanksgiving. But can I share like a little weird anecdote?
Oh yeah. Well, I immediately think like when two people get married and their families come together, that's one of the big things is the food. That's something me and my partner come from different parts of the United States, and our food palettes are completely different. And so it's really interesting, like me going to or her parents' house for Thanksgiving versus her coming to my parents. And we've started to like try and intermix, but it is interesting that like even, amongst, in the United States, that there's such different traditions around some of these.
And
events.
family recipes are very specific sometimes too. Like, did you put almonds in the green bean casserole? You do not put almonds in green, right? Like somebody's going to have a conniption over that, but my grandma, we always used to do Easter dinner at her house. And this was when I was young. I mean, it stopped, when I was like 10 or so. But she would, every year leading up to Easter, we would, when we ate eggs, we wouldn't crack them. We would poke holes in the bottom and blow them out, and rinse them and save them. And for Easter, she would make Jell-O eggs. So she would make Jell-O in different colors. She would like marble stir cream into that Jell-O and pour it into the eggs and then set them in the shells. And then on Easter, she would peel all of them and you would get served these marbled, they were really unique looking eggs on your little salad plate. Nice ruffle of iceberg lettuce there, and 3 little Jell-O eggs with a spoon of salad dressing, which is Miracle Whip, right? Which is what Miracle Whip originally was. Boom. So Jell-O with lettuce and Miracle Whip. And I hated it, but it was also like when it didn't happen anymore, it was like, oh, we're not doing Jell-O eggs.
Yeah.
Right? Like it is it's such a thing that belongs right to you, and those things when they go away, they become a memory that you hold dear, or you talk about the terrible thing, right? The struggle meal that you had when you were a kid that you hated, right? Mine was tuna casserole. But like,
or the one thing that you did like at the family tradition, and that's the only thing you ate. For me it was the apple salad, as long as there wasn't raisins.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was in the apple salad?
mainly apple and mushroom, or not marshmallows.
Oh.
And Miracle
yeah.
Whip.
Yeah,
Interesting.
basically.
Interesting.
Oh, and grapes. I would prefer like actual grapes over raisins.
Okay.
You'd have
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
My family does black-eyed peas,
Yeah.
and I really, really don't like them. But it was
Right.
fun when my mom would say, "Well, we didn't like them either growing up, but this is what we do for the people who,
Right.
because it's a tradition, that's what my mom did with her grandparents and her great-grandparents, and I used to swallow them like pills,
Yeah.
just because I didn't want to taste them, but like then when you don't get your black, when you come home. Especially now that I'm not living with them anymore, when I come home and then we're having a family get together, I almost want to be like, "Where are the black-eyed peas at?" So I can, hate them again.
Yeah, because it's part of a tradition.
Yeah.
Right? It became part of your family's culture.
Mm-hmm.
In as much as families are little capsules of culture in and of
Right.
themselves.
Oh
right?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so it is interesting because there's this big event happening this year, day after July 4th, called America's Potluck. Utah, America 250 Commission is rolling it out. But the idea of a potluck, I think, is also interesting and almost counterintuitive to this. But potlucks are very American, where everyone brings a dish. So, you only have to worry about one dish and suddenly you get a whole meal out of it.
Right.
And it's almost encouraged that you bring kind of your special dish, or encourage that you try everyone else's dish, because then it's kind of a sign of disrespect. And so you're kind of forced out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Right.
Obviously, some of these communities that have potlucks are a little insular, and so you're kind of used to everything. But just the idea of a potluck is really interesting in American culture as this way of getting to see what other family recipes are.
Yeah. And I think it comes from, and Michelle might know more about this or completely disagree with me, but I think things like potlucks, and I was thrown off when I moved to Indiana, because in Indiana they're
It's a
called
pitch-in.
pitch-ins, and I didn't know
Wait,
that.
what?
It's a pitch-in.
It's a pitch-in, so you pitch in your dish.
Is that central Indiana?
I don't.
Potluck
I think-
went northern Indiana, but
No,
I grew up with potluck.
I grew up with
Well,
I grew up with pitch-in.
okay.
And I'm a
I
native
grew up
Hoosier,
15 minutes
so-
away from Michigan, so
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe that's it. But I think pitch-ins kind of come from the kinds of communal meals that people would have in farming communities, especially like after a harvest or around harvest or during slaughter season or something like that, when everybody has come together to work together, and there's not an abundance of food at the time, right? And so you're all bringing what you have to share to make a meal for everyone. So again, that food being used as a community builder, and I think that there's probably some good roots of potlucks and pitch-ins in that tradition.
And I think of church dinners too.
right.
Yeah.
And we don't have a current one in my congregation, but I've got older ones, older church cookbooks.
Oh yeah.
That you had Laura Lee's something or other, and you head right to the cookbook the next time you get hungry for that, and look and see if her recipe is in there. And
But this is what I love and hate about those old church cookbooks, is that it wasn't ever Laura Lee's whatever. It was Mrs. George Johnson's. It was never like the woman getting to claim the dish herself. It was
Right.
always
Really?
like, it's this guy's wife's, cabbage rolls or whatever.
And then you've got the woman that leaves the secret ingredient out. So
Yes.
it's never quite
yes,
like.
it's never the same. I love old church cookbooks, Altar Society cookbooks, and so, oh my gosh, it's so great. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to get into this now, but you mentioned this, but food can really elevate kind of the historic disparities and, social dynamics and all of the above of American history. Just immediately, it's Mrs. George Johnson's.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like if you go historically, like I'm sure historic receipts, a lot of them aren't, either they're not claimed by the enslaved cooks that are doing it in
No.
the South, or the women who are creating these recipes in the North. But it's such an interesting legacy because we are still eating their food today. we still a very tangible legacy of theirs being left, even if they didn't get the credit in the moment.
Because even if you look at those earliest cookbooks by black cooks, they're cooking for wealthy white people. So it's not probably the recipes that they're cooking at home. But then if you look at some of the other cookbooks and you've got heavy use of cayenne pepper and okra, and you see these other southern foods that it's because that black cook was cooking what she had learned from her mother and grandmother to cook for this white family, and so that white family now says, this is our food,
Right?
because that's what they grew up with. But it's because these black women that cooked for them, these black men, cooked what they knew, and so it's this back and forth of sometimes you've got the black cook who has to cook for these wealthy people, and they're cooking French food because that's what these wealthy people want. But on the flip side, you've got people that grew up with food that they think is theirs, but usually it really comes from the black cook who learned from their grandmother how to cook.
Yeah. And the other disparity in that too is that when that black cook steps out of that kitchen that is for white people, they're not cooking for their families the same way, because those are not ingredients that they have availability of, right? And so so my mom was not a cook. My mom was a baker, right? My dad was the cook in the family. And my mom cooked, but my dad was the cook, right? And he was very particular about his kitchen, right? So I didn't get to help. I could watch him cook, but I couldn't help because I would do it wrong, right? But how do women in general, and everybody usually learn? How do you learn to cook? By watching and doing with someone who's an experienced cook. And I think where you see this other loss or disparity is when it comes to recipes not being recorded, because they are being handed down orally. They're being handed down through experience, right? So you can say, my dad passed away in 2020, and the number of times my sisters or somebody else in the family have contacted me to say, how did Dad do this, right? Because he can't make that anymore.
Right.
I watched him do it, so I can say, well, here's how I've done it, and it's pretty close to Dad's, or so that loss of who made that recipe, or who for lack of a better word, owns that recipe or that food style or whatever, can get lost just because that person wasn't asked, hey, can you write this down and we'll put it in a book to share it with other people, because either they weren't important enough, they didn't have the skill to translate it that way, no one wanted to, or that food wasn't considered important enough, right?
It's just everyday food.
Right. Yeah. Nobody needs to know about everyday food. But we're seeing more and more, right? You see people all the time who don't know how to cook. I mean, I'm always flabbergasted, only because my experience was different, right? So both my parents went back, my mom went back to work when I was like 8, right? From the time I was 8 until I left, I was responsible for cooking dinner, family dinner, 5 days a week. That's what I did when I got home from school. That's how I learned how to cook on my own. I had some really interesting disasters. But a lot of people don't. They never learn that.
Yeah, and this was a huge conversation that came up, especially with America's Potluck. They're like, Youth 250, which we've talked about on a previous episode, and we'll talk much more about it in a later episode. We helped consult with America's Potluck, and they're like, well, how can we get Gen Z involved? I'm like, cooking is very intimidating. I live in very small apartments. I lived in a studio in DC, and my oven, I didn't have a pan that fit my oven. It was so small. So I never cooked for anyone else. I mainly cooked pasta, something that was cheap,
Right.
something easy, something that was quick, because commute was an hour, so I didn't want to spend the rest of my night cooking. And so for Gen Z, it's really intimidating to be like, all right, bring a dish for everyone else to try. that you don't just go out and buy at the store. And so like the thing I suggested was like, how do you get involved, like cooking demonstrations, like get Gen Z in kitchens and like help them learn to cook, because that's what we're losing. And we're losing out on these kind of cultural exchanges that we could be doing with the potluck.
Right.
And that's all these things. It makes me think again of Prairie Town, because in Prairie Town we're basically teaching people how to cook the same way you would in that time period, where you're learning from a Sarah Withrow, you're learning from a Michelle or a Kim, how to cook and how to do it over a hearthside or over, what other
Coals. Yeah,
coals, the other things we do.
Yep.
And yeah, so it's just I really like that. Go ahead.
Another thing that I think gets people into food is growing their own food, because I've seen over the years in historic areas, new staff that came in that said, I don't like vegetables, I don't like beets, until they grew them and harvested them themselves out of the garden and helped cook them and said, oh, I do like these. Because you've got some skin in the game, right?
Right.
You've helped grow that from a seed, and you've seen it grow, and you've tended it, and you've now prepared it, and you've at least got to try it.
Yeah. That touches on one of the things that's important to me about food too, right? Like I remember when I first started working at Conner Prairie in 2013, and we did hog butchering. And I didn't grow up on a farm. I had never seen a hog butchered or anything like that. And I was grossed out and intrigued and shocked and also in awe, right? And I literally ate tenderloin that had 3 hours before been in a pen, right? And what it did for me was open my eyes for the first time, really, I think, in my life, really widely to the amount of labor, right, that's involved. And doing it all sort of like oldie-timey style is different than, modern-day abattoirs, butchering plants, processing plants, right? But the amount of labor that our ancestors put into making food, right, raising livestock and butchering it, and the work that butchering is, and then it's not like you just throw it in the freezer and we'll get to it when we get to it. All of that's got to be processed and preserved in some way. And the same with vegetables, like you grow to sustain, you grow to feed, but also you've got to grow to can and to plan for those times when you can't grow those things. And the disconnect that we have now, we've lost in our culture the need to do that because of processed foods and modern day things like refrigerators and canning and jars and things like that are commercially sold. And I think that's part of like Gen Z might be the first generation to really have experienced their entire existence with complete access to pre-made everything, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything. You can not even leave your house and have a 5-course meal delivered to your door, right?
DoorDash has changed the game for Gen Z. But
all the delivery services have, and I think like that was unheard of when I was growing up, to imagine something like that. I mean, I remember...
you had the milk delivered, right?
We did have a milkman because we lived out like kind of on the border of town, right? So we did have a milkman when I was younger. But
why was the milk delivered but nothing else?
Well, there were some other things. There was
cottage cheese was delivered too.
They did. The milkman also did eggs.
Okay.
But there was also a service. I don't know if it was just a Michigan thing, but it was a company called Swans. They had these big yellow trucks, and they delivered.
They're in Indiana.
Yeah.
Are they? Okay,
Yeah.
well, they were in Michigan too, and I remember being really jealous because there was a person in our like neighborhood that got Swans delivery, and I was always like, oh, they're rich.
Right.
Like they can, right? Because it was like Swans delivered like food. Like I grew up with like the aluminum tray TV dinners, and like we didn't have them very often. I mean, it was like sort of a treat because you just didn't eat that much like pre-prepared food, right? You made stuff. And I think that, like I said, Gen Z might be the first generation that completely depending on their family, doesn't have that experience or
Right.
hasn't had to have that experience. And I think that disconnects you from food and from cooking. And that's a shame. It's a really big shame. It makes me sad. And I can understand how cooking could be, intimidating. But it's such a, having just like growing it yourself, cooking it yourself, it just always tastes better. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't taste like the restaurant, right? But it tastes. There's pride.
Right. I'm curious, Easton, your thoughts, because as some do you cook?
As a young man.
Well, I do. More recently than like, I used to, like, when I was in college, I had a Penn Station East Coast subs within walking distance. So that's what I would do, like, 2-3 times a week, was
Right.
I would just walk to Penn Station. I was burning off everything I was gaining. So by the end of my freshman year, I lost like 19 pounds as opposed
my
to gaining
gosh.
15 pounds because I was walking to and from Penn Station. So I was burning off the sandwich as I was going. But, it was always like, fast food, processed stuff, because we didn't even have a kitchenette. We had a shelf, a microwave, and a refrigerator. And so now that I'm living in an actual proper apartment, I've had, family give me recipes that have been passed down and nice photocopies of written notes. And I've now discovered a love for a real chicken pot pie, because I used to get the Marie Callender's chicken pot pies in the freezer section, and Mom was like, I'm gonna just make you a chicken pot pie one day and see how it goes. And now I eat that like pretty much every other week. So
Do you make your own crust?
I don't.
That's a.
I was
It's
going to
okay.
ask if it's a crust or if it's noodles, because there's
Noodles.
in Pennsylvania pot pies have noodles rather than
Interesting.
broad noodles.
I did
Yeah.
not know that. I do know some people do like a biscuit top, like, and it's still called a pot pie. But I just wonder, like, there's nothing wrong with pre-prepared pie crust. Pie crust can be people's difficulty.
That's the one
in their
thing. Is like,
life.
I gotta go to get my traditional or deep dish Kroger crust. But like, you cook the chicken tenderloins, put them in there, get your brine going, put in, heavy whipping cream and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it really is a comfort food.
Yes.
And so I'm very happy to have that. So that's my main thing. And again, I am a picky eater, so it only takes one pot pie to feed me for a while. So
Yeah.
and if you like it and you can do it close, like, my thing is, every time somebody cooks for me, I feel like it always tastes better, as opposed to when I make it, I feel like I'm tasting all the flaws, which is weird because I don't
Yeah.
think I'm just trying to do it like the same way my mother does it for me.
It never tastes the same as the person who makes the thing that you really enjoy, right?
There's
It's
love.
never
There
going
really
to.
is love in it.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yep.
can taste it.
Yeah.
What you said made me think of a couple of things. First off, I think the going back to your comment about our car culture, I think really impacts our fast food culture as
Yeah.
well. How it just needs to be fast, because
Yeah.
by the time you order it to you want it to be ready by the time you can pick it up. And I think that is a hallmark of America, United States, because of our car culture. The other thing, and this goes back a little bit, I think our generation misses out is since we can get everything all the time, we miss out on those like specialty things that you would only get like because they were
Seasonal.
seasonal or hard to get or
Yeah.
more expensive, and now it's easier
Right.
for us
Yeah.
to get. I mean, other than me, I only eat apples in October. Just that's my entire
Right.
my entire menu is only apples. But like we kind of lose out on seasonality too, to a great extent.
Right. I mean, if you get used to crummy tasting strawberries because they're available all year round, it's difficult for you to appreciate when you should buy a strawberry for it to taste really good. And once you have a really good in-season strawberry, you're just like, oh, I don't want to eat the other strawberries because it's just going to be disappointment, right? And I think that's true of, I mean, like I said, I'm of a certain age. I grew up when you didn't have I mean, you didn't have strawberries except in the summertime, and watermelon except
Unless
in
you
the
froze
summertime.
them, right.
But it wasn't like you didn't have that fresh.
Right.
But like going to the grocery store in the wintertime and you didn't have tomatoes for your salad, right? There were sometimes hothouse tomatoes, but they were mealy. You know, that process wasn't perfected in the way that it is now to produce that year-round availability. And I think that it's another way that sort of subverts how people enjoy food, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can have whatever you want anytime that you want it, day or night. I mean, I grew up in like that with the idea of like, what will the future be like? Oh, wouldn't it be amazing if like you could see a commercial on TV for food and then like you could have it beamed to your house? And you literally can really do that now. It's a phone call or a couple of computer clicks away to have that food in your hands in 20 minutes, half an hour, depending on what it is that you're getting. And I think that kind of consumption lowers the appreciation for what you're consuming, right? If it's all blasé and you can have it whenever you want it, there's no like specialness to it.
Well,
Even meat was seasonal because, you didn't have turkey burgers in the summer
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
had turkey in the wintertime.
Right.
You had turkey in Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah. And lamb. You only had lamb in April.
Right.
Right.
and I don't want foodies to completely come after me for what I'm about to say, but I historically, a lot of the innovation in food has come from figuring out things based on how to preserve them, how to do all this stuff. I'm just think of cheese as we love cheese as Americans, but like it was born out of this need to preserve milk, and like we don't really have those sort of things we're up against because the innovation's really coming in how we are preserving it, instead of how we are getting around that by I guess in the technology for preservation as opposed to yeah. And so it is interesting, like what kind of just to ponder what innovations we would have culinary when we're forced to and we want to have these things years round if we weren't so advanced technologically. But
I think and I think to answer that, some people how do you invent new food, right, when there's not a need to invent new food? And I think we saw that 10 years ago when the molecular gastronomy wave hit through, and like people are like, how do you dissect an apple to 17 different parts and 4 textures, and just like changing food in a really weird way to make it the same food but different.
Yeah.
I must have missed
different
that.
experience. Oh yeah. Heston Blumenthal. Put that on your list
I was
of
gonna
things
say
to look
I'm
up.
saying it's
Oh,
coming back
wow.
around on TikTok right now, and it's crazy where they
How
like
do you spell that?
yeah.
Heston Blumenthal. Heston.
But yeah, it feels almost
BLUMENTHAL.
artificial
Gotcha.
though, right? Where it's not for like a specific time and place that you're innovating food for. You're innovating for the sake of innovation.
Yeah, potentially. And I do think there are some chefs who do really innovative things who truly just love food, right? Like they're not doing it for the wow. They're doing it for the I didn't know it could taste this way.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this is what a mushroom really tasted like. And I think that there's definitely two camps in that, and I wouldn't want to cast somebody in one way or the other or disparage someone's experience of food. But I do think that it does change how we consume. I have told many people this, and this is, oh my gosh, going on like 25 plus years since I had this experience, but I will never forget being in Italy. I was visiting a friend. We were in Rome, and we went to this little restaurant, and it wasn't like a super, like, this is the restaurant that you need to go to. It was like this little neighborhood restaurant. I think it was called La Masca, and we went in, and they sort of had they had plates that had, here are the pastas that you can get tonight, right? And I wanted to get something that I had never had arancini balls before, and I wanted to get some, and my friend was like, no, don't get those, don't. And I was like, no, I'm getting those, right? And then there was, I don't remember the Italian name for it. It's this pasta that's called like beggar's purse or whatever. So it's like a thin pasta sheet that's pulled up together and tied, right? And it was filled with ricotta and mushrooms. And they brought, I'm a sizable woman, right? And they bring the plate, and there's like 3 of these little, golf ball size. And I was like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. Like, right? Like, whatever. So I take my fork and my knife, and I put the bite into my mouth. And for the first time in my life, compelled by nothing more than the experience I was having of that food, I had to set the fork down on the table and lean back and just experience what I was experiencing. I had never tasted fresh ricotta like that. I had never tasted mushrooms in that way. The pasta was perfect. I mean, it was like, I didn't know that these ingredients could taste like this. And I feel in my being, in my body, how I felt in that moment of just, when you have that experience of food, it's so incredible.
Oh my gosh. Have you ever seen Ratatouille?
Yes.
It reminds me of the moment when Ego eats the Ratatouille for the first time, and he like turns into a kid again. And a very, very, a different moment, but still, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
It just shows how powerful food is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and we're in morel season right now, and the first morels of the year, because you don't always find them.
Yeah, I know. I see everybody's like Facebook posts about them, and I get really jealous.
But they just taste so good every year.
Yeah. Even if you only get like 3, you still wash them and slice them and fry them in that butter. Yes.
Oh gosh, that just reminds me of this map we have. We'll have to like link this map, but there's a beautiful map about like American regional cuisine, and I just kind of look like it's pretty cool. Here, I'll flip it around so people can see. So there's a lot of this, but when you're looking at, here you go, everyone. There's a screen on a screen, and but like when you talk about like the buttery, nice, like I looked where my family is from in Alabama, and where like the comfort food type genre and the soul food areas are. But there's like 3 or 4 sections in Alabama and in Georgia, and even in Ohio, it's like this mixture of this buttery fried, this comforting, and then this German influence and all this stuff that comes together and makes these foods that almost are described less by texture and more by emotion.
Yeah.
Like, what does comfort taste like?
Right. And we don't, in my opinion, we don't have that without immigration, right? With people coming from other place to come here, bring their culture, their knowledge, their food sense here with us, whether it gets transformed or how it gets transformed. But I think that goes back for like to the comfort of it, right? Like why do often these communities stay insular? Because there's comfort in it, in knowing that people know your culture and you know theirs, and what you do around them is going to be accepted, or what you don't do around them is the right thing to do, and also the food that you eat, and like what this is like my grandmother made it. Yes, also my grandmother, right? I remember being as a teenager saying to my mom, because we were always my mom's side of the family is German, and we were always the house in the neighborhood in the summertime that the screen door had flies on it, because we ate boiled cabbage and sauerkraut a couple times a week, right? And I said, it's really cool that we recognized, your side of the family's food culture growing up. And my mom said, that's because we were poor. That's why we ate that food. I was like, but it was just, it's like one of those things, right? Like, and it made me think about why is that food, why is sauerkraut and cabbage part of those Eastern European countries, right? Because they're survival foods, really. They're preserved foods. They are winter long-lasting foods. They are large, feeding, inexpensive, easy to grow food things.
Right, and over time they can transform into I don't like specialty cuisine, like important, like
yeah, absolutely,
yeah. Similarly, on my again looking at this map, it is really well done. So I'm from Elkhart County, and it is a different color than the rest of the state because of our Pennsylvania Dutch Amish influence. And so it's the same color as like Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Right.
And I recently, earlier this year, went to Lancaster, and it was like, it just felt like home.
Right.
It was really weird. And I was like, I never really think of Elkhart County as, you know, that different than the rest of Indiana, but just I did go to some like local food places, and I was like, wow, no, this is exactly like us. And so it was interesting to geographically go back to where like it had, not that, you know, that food originated from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but in the United States, that's where it was.
Right.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what I was saying about how big and diverse the United States is, right? Like, I grew up in Michigan, like I said, but we had relatives up in the Upper Peninsula. And the way I ate and what I ate in the UP was very different from how we ate in southeastern Michigan, where we lived. You know, and there, you know, up in the UP, those traditions of the Swedish and the Cornish and Irish miners who came there to mine copper in the early days, you know, those food traditions. You can't, once you cross the Mackinac Bridge, you're not going to go 10 feet without passing a pasties sign, right? You're going to get a pasty right away. I never ate a pasty in Lower Michigan, ever. But in the UP, we did, right? But I think when you go to, even in Indiana, right, which is one of the flattest states, right? But you get up to northern Indiana and you're getting close to water there. So that changes some of the influence of what food is consumed. There's so much ecology inside the United States, geographical differences that affect food, not only food source, but also food preparation and food style, right? So those influences also impact. I mean, it is in the 70s when I was a little kid growing up, there was this idea like America's a big melting pot, and there are even like little Schoolhouse Rock mentions of it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we've kind of pulled away from that melting pot, I think, because what we saw was that in a melting pot, everything blends all together, right?
Everything is assimilated into this.
Right. And what we see is a richer table, a richer experience is when that assimilation isn't the point of it. What the point of it is the coming together, right? So it's we're not a melting pot, we're a salad bowl, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to ask that question. Never mind. We'll cut what I was going to say. I 100% agree, and I've been wanting to ask this question this whole time, and we've kind of danced around it because we've talked about the food cultures of a lot of places around the United States. To you, how would you describe Central Indiana, their food culture here? I know we mentioned the pork tenderloin, but for a lot of people, they think of Indiana as boring. And on this podcast already, we've been talking about like ways and how like there are, you know, things to be proud of Indiana, or like recognizing Indiana's uniqueness in certain ways. So I'll just throw it out. How would you describe Indiana's food culture?
I would say there's a lot of Pennsylvania Dutch influence. I mean, not just in northern Indiana, but all across the state. Even in southern Indiana, because you got a lot of German communities down there. Some of them that came later on. But you've also got a huge southern influence. You know, they talk about Indiana being the most southern of the northern states, and because of so many people that immigrated up from the south and brought their food with them and brought their ways of doing things with them.
Yeah, I think like much of the Midwest, there is a certain amount of if you're talking about purely like what is Indiana's food, like it is, I think it's a comfort food. It's comfort food. I mean, there are definitely in the time that I moved to Indiana in 2008, and definitely in the time that I've lived here, I have seen Indiana, especially in Indianapolis and the surrounding areas, really start to show some some sparks and some fire in the food scene, right? Some people consider Indianapolis to be a food destination. You know, there are places that I can, you know, think of on the top of my head that are like, I would, if somebody said, where should I go? I would tell them that place. And that doesn't mean that place is uniquely Indiana.
Right.
They might be cooking from a number of different cultures. But what I will say about the places that I would recommend is that they are using Indiana products, right? And so I think that that's where Indiana, at least in the past, you know, 10 to 15 years, has really started to shine, maybe more so than other places, is that Indiana has an abundance of livestock and you know, crops, agriculture,
staple crops,
to create a food system there. And it maybe riffs on comfort food, and it may be pulling in these other cultures that have come in, German cultures. You know, Hamilton County has one of the fastest rising Asian cultures or Asian populations in the state of Indiana. These other cultures coming in, and when they bring food, and you're like, oh, okay, I actually like this. Like, how can I make that? I don't know all the spices that are in this. I can, if I'm too scared to ask, I can try to figure it out. I can look online, but I can also experiment with what I have and what I think it is. And so I think that's how I would characterize Indiana's food, as being like a comfort food, but a comfort food that is I would say it's smart because it's using what Indiana has strong.
Yeah. It's pulling another part of Indiana's identity, our agricultural roots,
right?
And like letting that shine, which is really cool. I 100% agree. I mean, I automatically think popcorn, but
yeah,
American
I mean,
food? An American
corn.
food?
We're right up there.
I know, yeah.
In
And
the,
so,
you know, the top 3 in the nation for almost all the different uses for corn. We are home to one of the largest producers of base corn alcohol, right? So boutique distillers across the country get their base alcohol before they turn it into their bourbon or their whiskey or their whatever. They're getting their grain alcohol from Indiana corn.
yeah, I was gonna say also breweries. I think like microbreweries. Yeah. Indiana is very, very strong microbrewery culture. I remember when I was in college, it had just hit the level that it was pre-prohibition microbreweries, and like you think your big hitters, they're out here winning all of the awards every year, like national awards. And also when I moved to Virginia, the microbreweries were awful, just terrible. So it's something that I truly missed about Indiana. I was like, and it's a weird thing to miss, I guess, but like, because you think of beer as one of those things that you can just go to the store and get, but like it is like you can tell the difference.
Yeah, there's a craft. It's called craft beer for a reason, right? And so when people are doing it right, and then they're also like allowing themselves to experiment, you know.
Yeah.
When you look at some of the, I will shout out Sun King, who's been a really wonderful Conner Prairie partner for a number of years, and they put out a brew called Cherry Busey.
I love all of their weird, like small barrel or like small batch.
I can't think of the name of it. I feel really bad, but there's a rhubarb sour that they do seasonally. Love it. And like you don't. And here's the thing. And I know Dave Colt, and we've had lots of conversations. And I love that we see in the United States, you know, like without craft beers, we're not going to see things like sours in America because sour beers are not from around here. They are from Belgium, right? They're gosas, they salty sour beers, and that's a thing. It's specific to a certain river where the water is taken from, right? But how do you replicate that when you come someplace else? We don't have that vast experience unless we're drawing from other places.
Yeah. Okay, cool. How has globalization of food affected cultural identities and traditions?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, and it's one that that this new series, America's Table, that we're doing at Conner Prairie is trying to explore a little bit. So we're inviting people to come in and have a conversation about immigration through the lens of gastronomy. So we've already had our first session. We have another one in May, one in June, and then one in August. And we focus in each session on a specific food, and we talk about where that comes from, how it exists in our culture, but how it got here, and sort of the history of that food. We have a little drink, and we try some things, and we make some stuff. So it's all about sort of really kind of having some, this is such a horrible modern day buzzword, but having some mindfulness about what we consume. So coming up, we've got soy. We're going to focus on soy in May, and then in June, we're going to focus on, what are we focusing on in June?
Is it the corn? Or is it the hot dog?
No, it's hot dog. Yeah, just before 4th of July. So we're going to talk about all-American hot dog, because it's not. Spoiler alert. And then in August, we'll focus on corn.
Yes. And something I really appreciate about the series is you are deconstructing it in a way that, like, you're not saying, oh, you're not allowed to identify with this food. Like, it's still part of your culture,
Yeah.
but now you have an appreciation for where it's coming from. And
Yeah.
hopefully those people that it's coming from, too.
Yeah. Part of the reason that all-American hot dog is going to happen just before 4th of July is because I bet you're going to eat a hot dog on 4th of July.
Right.
And don't you want to be the person at the barbecue who's got some interesting
the hot dog-
information
all
to
the hot dog
share?
knowledge.
Exactly. You are the star of the barbecue.
Oh, yeah. This is on topic, but a little bit of an aside. But I follow an Instagram account called Stadium Eats that just shows all the ways that they are like flipping hot dogs on their head in ballparks around America,
Yeah.
wrapping it in puff pastry, slapping it between two Twinkies.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know.
I'm not okay with that. But my opinion, best hot dog, hands down, is a dirty California dog, which is
Adding it to the list.
it's an all-meat hot dog wrapped in bacon, cooked on a flat griddle, right, alongside onions and green peppers. And then it is served in a quickly griddled, warmed up white bun with mayonnaise, ketchup, jalapenos, and the grilled onions and peppers.
There's a lot going
If
on.
you're
That's a lot.
if you're in LA, that you will see street vendors doing that, and it is the best, wonderful hot dog experience, most wonderful hot dog experience you'll have.
Sounds great.
It's good.
Everybody watching in LA, you know what to go do.
The natural curiosity of youth.
Let's have some joy, shall we? Although this has been a very joyful conversation anyway. But yes, Michelle, I don't know if we told you about this, but we're gonna ask 2 questions.
Okay.
They're random. We'll ask you last so that you have time to think, because the rest of us cheated a little bit. So I just want to ask, this is relevant. What is something you've learned about food in your work that surprised you? Just shout it out. And if
I was gonna say I've been saying all of the things that surprised me. I learned so
Okay.
much from you guys when I go out and either go to your specialized programs or just the daily experience going out and talking to the cooks. Obviously, I just said how I didn't really cook a lot, and so I do learn all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
One thing was like how much I would learn for camping. Like it was really helpful. I was like, oh, I just need a spider. I know how to do this.
Yeah.
And like I was able to cook meals for a week doing camping. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me it is. I mean, food has always been emotional for me, and I think that somehow I thought that was unique to a certain extent to my experience. But I think doing a lot of food programming and doing historical interpretation with food, especially, you see the emotional connection that people have with food and food experience, right? And that the tentacles of that experience spreads into so many other things. It creates conversation in ways that you often don't think, right? People really connect with food, and they tell you things that maybe sometimes they shouldn't, right? But it's really special,
Yeah.
that emotion.
The thing I like about food experiences, especially the ones at Conner Prairie, they both create memories, which is a great way to learn, but they also evoke so many memories too.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say things that I've learned from guests, because sometimes, sometimes you get in the mood of, I feel like I know because I've done the research, but then guests will always teach us things about their food, and the way that you can go from food to talking about global trade, and just because that, it's all connected, and none of all this history stuff that we talk about is in silos, or it shouldn't be. It all works together because it's part of everyday life and how our ancestors lived and how we live today.
Yeah.
I was hoping I wouldn't be last because mine's less happy. But I will say, but there is an action step to it. So I got to give a shout out to Jesse Kramer and Dr. Charlene Fletcher, because they told me about this, the difference between a food desert and food apartheid, as we talk about and we had Mama Camille come in and speak during This is Reclamation about a lot of these things, and we talked about how a lot of places like Lawrence, they have to have these coalitions like the Green Thumb Patrol, because food desert sounds very natural, like, well, these people just don't get food because that's the way our city is constructed. But in reality, a lot of these corporations, they choose where they want to invest and where they don't. That's why in certain neighborhoods you're going to see a Rose's or an IGA, but you're not going to see a Sam's Club and a Costco and a Walmart. I mean, we're in Fishers right now. There's one giant bougie Kroger with a clothing section in it, and 5 minutes from there's another Kroger. It's like,
Yeah.
So it's that kind of, just that awareness of the thing that you would never think, like, how close are our, this kind of stuff we take for granted.
And a perfect example of how food leads to other conversations. I live just on the edge of Lawrence, in between Lawrence and Indianapolis. And when I moved there, it was the first time I was ever sort of like living in a food desert. And I'm privileged enough to have a car, right? So I can drive the 15 minutes that it takes me or 10 minutes that it takes me to get to a store that's, straight down the road. But for a lot of people in the neighborhood where I live, their grocery store is the Dollar Tree or the Dollar General, a Family Dollar. What's available there is what they have available for food. So that changes someone's diet, their experience of food, because of their location, right? It's not a choice. They have a choice only by what they're able to choose from. So it's a whole other conversation about what that means culturally, what that means for people, individuals, in their food experience, learned, and also how it goes on in their life.
Well said. I promise there's a happy question coming.
Yeah, that was the joy part. Sorry, I brought us all down. I have that skill.
We're good. We're okay. We're going to recover with this one. What's your favorite music video of all time? I don't know why we're all looking. We're all looking.
We all already have one chosen.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim.
Well, so we did kind of chit-chat about this, and so my answer, what, I won't say what I had jumped to, and I will say I'm gonna amend the question a little bit and say currently, my favorite is a trilogy of 3 different videos by an artist named Ren, and it's the Tale of Jenny and Screech.
Jenny and Screech.
Why?
Oh yeah.
Why? Because do you know why? Really, this artist is like a modern storyteller balladeer. The way that they write and deliver the music, they're telling a story, and they're a superb performer. So they're performing the story too. It's very moving, emotional. I will tell you, if you enjoy such things, you have the capacity to be moved to tears by this trilogy, and also be surprised and shocked and taken aback and be taken on a real journey. I love storytelling. I love being taken on a journey, and so when an artist can do that for me, I'm all in.
Okay, it's really cheesy, but the immediate one that I thought of was "Don't Worry, Be Happy." Just because I like that, it's cheesy, but it's a song that makes me happy. But probably recent ones are on TikTok. and either political or Celtic. So-
Or both.
I love
Because
that.
there's some political Celtic ones too.
Oh, for sure. I will also say, food and music kind of have that in common, and that's all about you, what it brings out of you. I'll say mine. Well, I can never have just one answer to these things. So I will say, just if we're saying like a visual components to a song, there's a hip hop artist I like named Cookin' Soul. That's not cooking, that's cookin' with an apostrophe. And he makes these beats on his beat machine. I don't know what kind of beat machine he uses, different ones, and it's usually like all old like R&B samples, just like the kind of era of hip hop that I like 80s 90s style. But what he does is he puts these 80s 90s visuals to his music. So in this specific song called Sweet Love, I think it's what it's called, he has this footage, like this vintage footage of Michael Jordan like playing basketball, and Charles Barkley playing basketball, and Dominic Wilkins playing basketball and participating in the dunk contests during their heydays. And every time they dunk the ball, it matches the beat. So it's pretty cool to see that it's a modern song, like it's a new song, but it sounds like it's from that era, paired with that era. It's kind of a cool trick.
Yeah.
But if we got to do like a more like official music video, then I'll say "Smooth Criminal" by Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
It's cool to see those professional choreographers like struggle to keep up with him.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Michelle, did it also hurt your heart a little bit when Easton referred to things that happened in our lifetime?
No,
as
no,
vintage?
I didn't mean that. Hey, they say anything 10 years ago is vintage. The Nintendo Wii is vintage.
I've told people the shock and like open mouth effect that had on me when someone said they were born in the 1900s, and I was like, because we talk so much about the 1800s, right? At Conner Prairie, and I was like, I was born in the 1900s. Oh my gosh.
Me too.
Yeah, I was gonna say we were.
I know,
I being born on the tail end of the 1900s, I am not looking forward to being old, because that will be like, when I'm in my 70s and 80s, they're like, oh my gosh, you're real old.
You're really old. You were born in the 20th century.
You're a historical curiosity, like
Yeah.
William Conner.
I didn't mean to sidetrack us. Your favorite video.
So it's not my favorite song. I do like the song. It's La 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 by Naughty Boy feat Sam Smith, but I really appreciate the music video specifically because it recontextualizes the whole song. The song itself is just kind of your generic pop song, but the music video contextualizes it as this boy who's being verbally abused, and so he's going la la la, like learning to not listen. And so he leaves his house, he finds a dog on the street, and that's his new companion. And then it goes on this like this takes place on the streets of Bolivia, and it takes on like a Wizard of Oz metaphor. He starts picking up these kind of outsiders. They all are either not being like treated right or whatever, but they're all representations of the Tin Man, the straw man, the scarecrow,
The straw
man, and then the lion. And it's interesting. So it then mixes with Bolivian local like folklore, where they go up into the mountains and they become like basically a found family. But since he has learned not to listen, there's this El Tío, this demon character in Bolivian folklore that attracts people by like tempting them by saying things to them. And so the boy sacrifices himself because he's learned not to listen. And so by sitting there in front of El Tío in this cave, he saves everyone else from the influence of the demon. And it's just like, how would you get that from this otherwise just generic pop song? Is insane. And so it's incredible. Like
it's such an interesting way to kind of end this, because that is such a great parallel to what we're talking about cultural influences on food.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Right? And it takes something from Wizard of Oz and which mishmash with Bolivian folklore and creates a story that resonates with you as an American in, 2026.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting.
Thank y'all. That was great.
Oh, thanks.
Another successful Joy Corner in the books.
We love to finish our podcasts, all of our podcasts, with the same question. And it can be based on the conversations we're having today. It can just be whatever you're thinking. But what is your hope for the future?
I mean, I hope that we will find a way to maintain an enduring democracy, that we will find a way to bring that democracy to a place where it is inclusive of the differences that make this country a whole, and that we can find value and comfort in that makeup.
I would say I hope we see that we have more similarities than differences. Well, differences add that spice. Sometimes it can be too spicy currently at times, but I think when we get down to our basic humanity, we're more the same than we are different.
I love that. Thank you both so much for being a part of this conversation. Had a great time.
Thanks for
Always made me hungry.
food.
I'm glad we did this right after lunch,
Yeah.
not before.
And don't forget all our classes here at Conner
I
Prairie.
know.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a couple shout outs. Please, Kim already described some of her American Table series, but please come if you're in the area. Michelle, what do you want to shout out?
Yeah, we've got classes coming up, cooking classes, a gardening class. So check out our classes on the website. And any day you come out, you can learn things from our interpreters because there's always something interesting going on.
Yes. And then coming this June, through part of the year, we will have a special rotating exhibit coming to Conner Prairie, all on food. Not entirely sure what else it's about, but very excited to see it. I mean, it ties into so many of the themes that we have here at Conner Prairie.
And also in June, we have our 14th annual History on Tap, which is our beer distiller vintner festival, all Hoosier makers, and you can come and sample all of the wonderful things that Indiana agriculture helps to create.
Yes, so true.
Absolutely. Shout out Food and Beverage and Rachel for feeding me.
We also, if you haven't been to the new museum center, have a great new cafe. So
Yeah. That features some of our own livestock products.
Get
Right.
your
We-
acai
we're
bowls
finally-
right.
Yeah.
Get your
And later on, we'll have produce from the gardens.
So
Yeah.
everything's related to food.
It's looking up. It's
Yeah.
looking up. But yes, thank you all so much. I was supposed to do a shout out every episode. That didn't last long. But yeah, that was great. Thank y'all so much for coming on this ride with us today. Be sure to check us out on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere else you get your podcast. And until next time, I'm Easton.
And I'm Ryan.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Michelle.
All right, y'all take care.